Hey, what's going on, everybody? I want to say hello and welcome you to part two of my Man Up series. Today, I want to talk about single fathers, okay, and some of the challenges that we face. Okay, right now, let's get right to it. We got four challenges that we face. The first, earning money. Second, spending time. Three, having relationships, interpersonal relationships or romantic relationships. And four, having time for yourself. Okay. Now, what's the cause of these issues or problems, challenges that we face as single fathers? The first one I can think of right now is maybe the mother might be absent. Okay. So now, if the mother is absent, which, this is becoming more and more these days, we seeing a lot of men being single fathers. And that's a difficult job, just as it is for the mothers being single mothers. So, let's talk about it. So, the earning money issue, it's difficult to focus on yourself and earning the money as much as you can when you also have to be responsible for the child alone and you don't have a backup. Um, so, unless you are willing to, have your child grow up in a daycare center or something like that, or send them to boarding school or something like that, you're going to have some challenges you're going to face because you want them to be as uh, grounded at home and happy at home as possible. So it's challenges that will arise to provide this stable home environment and still get out in the world and earn as much as you can. Those are obstacles. So that's one. And to speak to the point of this series is for us to man up. We're not beating on the women. Okay, so the mother is absent. Okay, now in some cases, a tragedy might take place and you might have lost your wife or your child's mother due to a death, and it's really nothing you can do from that. That's a tragic situation, and my heart goes out to anybody that has to deal with that. Okay, and it's not the mother's fault because I'm quite sure if she had the choice, she would not uh, have left the child through death. So we don't want to even go in that area and try to, go after her in any way. So now, on the other hand, if that's not the case, and maybe she might be having some mental issues or some financial issues, or whatever is causing her to not look at parenting as a priority and be there for the child or the children, then now we got something else to look at. Okay, because if it's nothing like life and death that's causing you not to be there for your children, that's a decision you making. So I don't want to beat on women, right, about it, because men have been doing this for ages, and women, I grew up a single child. I mean, my mother was a single parent. My father was very active in my life, but he wasn't in the home after they split up. So I had to, as a child, go back and forth. And I think that might have a lot to do with some of the things we see out in the world, because when you give these children two households, two set of rules, then whenever they don't want to go along with one, they can look to the other. And life is not like that. Okay, it's one set of rules. Okay, this whole world is just one set of rules. We all have uniqueness, but then we all have some common similarities. So those common similarities outweigh the uniqueness of each one of us. Right? So we don't get to say, because I'm unique, the rules that apply to everyone else in the world don't apply to me because I'm unique. We don't get to say that. That's just unreal. So that's one thing that may come from, separate households. We may be teaching the children that if we don't come together as parents, we may be teaching the children that you can change the rules whenever they suit you. And that's an unrealistic way to view the world. And once they get out into the world, they're going to face a lot of difficulties trying to navigate with that mentality, because it's really one set of rules that applies to the whole world. Okay. Now, how we apply them, that may be some variations. There may be some variations in there. People may apply rules differently, but they still the same rules. So the earning money, that becomes difficult because maybe the mother is absent and you're trying to be not only the provider and secure the home, but you also attempting to nurture. You want to try to be as nurturing as possible. Now, personally, I don't know how far that we can go as men, because our makeup is different from that of a woman. Even though we hear about having a feminine side, totally we are masculine. Okay, we men. I don't see where it fits in the life of a man to be feminine. I don't understand that concept. And I look forward to anybody who see this video. If you got some comments, I welcome it. My personal outlook is that I don't see where it fits for men to be feminine. I don't see that. But like I said, that's what this platform is for, us to man up and grow. Even if I've said something that is incorrect, come on, tell me about it. Put it in the comments. I'm looking forward to it. And don't forget to like and subscribe too. I want you to do that because I got some more videos coming after this. And we don't just talk about money all the time, even though money is needed all the time. But we don't just talk about money. It's a lot of different life issues that we deal with. Okay, so earning money is a challenge for a single father, and he's juggling having time with the children and stuff like that. Okay, then the next thing, we kind of led into it, spending time. Okay, so once again, these two kind of connected. You're trying to spend as much time with you can as your child or your children, and you still need to earn money so you can take care of them. So it's like a tug of war right there, because if you go lacking on one or the other, it's bad. So that's a challenge. Okay. And then with the absent parent or mother in this case, it becomes even more of a challenge. So now that's the second one. Third is having relationships. Okay. We are still human. Okay. We still want to spend time with the opposite sex. I still want to have a special lady, or, one day maybe a wife. I still want to do this, even though it might not have worked out with the mother of my children or my child. I still want to go on and enjoy life. So how do you do this? And you have responsibility to your child first. Okay. And then there's the new person, she may have already had children and stuff like that. So, that's one challenge. Then it might be some that don't have children. They might not even be looking for it. That's a challenge. Then you got the ones that, they might be willing to participate, but hey, you don't know what's going on. What's their mental state? Do they have an agenda? Okay. Are they here for your sake or just theirs alone? You have to find all this out. So these are things that increase uh, the difficulty in having relationships when you're a single father. Okay, and then the last but definitely not least is having time for yourself. Okay, because I want to say it took me some years to get to this point where I could even do something like this. I kind of juggle with the reality that, or excuse me, not juggle, struggle with the reality that my child's mother was not playing the role or functioning in the role that I expected, as I expected. And I'm going to say that's not her fault. Okay. I mean, it's what she's doing. Okay. And I'm not talking about my situation. I mean, just in general. Okay. Like I said, we're not beating on the women. It's not particularly their fault completely because at the end of the day, we chose her. Okay. We decided that this woman could be my child's or children's mother. We decided that. So what I want to get to off that point is that the decisions that we make, they shape our future. And they also shape the future of those that we are responsible for and that we love. So that's how critical it is for us to make the proper decisions. Okay. Now, here go the big one. Because we had this concept in our mind of who we want to be with or the type of woman we want to be with or we feel that we should have. We have this thought in our mind, vision in our mind. But are we worthy of that woman? Okay. Are we able to receive the type of woman that we are visioning in our mind and say that we want? Are we able to receive her? Are we qualified to receive her? So I want to get into the definition of the word qualified. Qualified is officially recognized as being trained to perform a particular job. Okay, so here we go, trained to perform a particular job. Some people have not been trained well enough or at all. Okay. And in this case, for us, the men, this very dangerous, right? To be in a position that you have not had any training or have not been trained well. That can be very dangerous. This is a fact because we are the ones who are supposed to be the lead. So if you put a person in charge who has no training to do a job, more than likely they're not going to do the job properly. That's something you could probably expect. So because of this, and this is like happening every day, men are not trained properly or some at all to be men, leaders in their home, leaders in their community. They don't do it. And some make the attempt, but may fail miserably. And it's I want to say, it's a not so comfortable thing to face a reality that if we fail at something, nobody is going to give us a second chance most of the time. So we know this, men. We know usually once you make a mistake, hey, that's all she wrote. Most of the time, that was it. So we try really hard not to make the mistake. And then when we see ourselves maybe missing the mark a little bit, but still having the opportunity to maybe turn the wheel and head back in the right direction, we don't want nobody to stop us. So that's when, you hear we might seem a little stubborn sometimes, like, I got this, because you don't want to fail. So on that note, what I would say is you have to think very deeply about the things you plan to do before you start doing them. And that's not a common practice. A lot of times we just decide, hey, I want to do this, and up and do it. And when it don't turn out the way that we want it to turn out, we upset and maybe even start blaming other people because we don't want to hold ourselves accountable for making bad choices and decisions, which that is not manly. We don't do that. If we make a mistake, hey, I made that mistake. Now, what caused me to do it? How did I wind up making that mistake? Have to basically be hard on yourself, but not hard enough on yourself to where you're going to be depressed. Because we're not perfect. We have to accept that we're not going to be perfect. But we want to get as close to the mark as we can, do our best. Okay, so let's move to another issue, because I talked about this briefly in my first video, to control, that word. And, I get a lot of pushback from that. Women, well, you too controlling. And I want to address this. Okay, so men depending on women for things that they shouldn't is a big problem. And that's one of the reasons why we get so much pushback when we don't. Because a lot of men are dependent on women for the things that they shouldn't. So now women and children are supposed to be protected by us, men. We are supposed to protect the women and children. That's our duty. So here go a few things that we responsible for, or ways that we are responsible for protecting them. Financially, psychologically, physically, and emotionally. We want to keep harm from our women and children in all of those areas. We don't want nobody, we don't want them suffering financially, being hungry, not having adequate clothing to keep themselves warm. Psychologically, we don't want them being afraid. We don't want them being insulted. Okay. Physically, we don't want them being harmed. We don't want them being injured or tarnished in any way. And emotionally, we don't want them to be depressed. We don't want them to feel mentally abused or overlooked or anything like that will lead to some emotional issues. We try to protect them from all of that. So now I want to say this because of the pushback, and I mean what I'm getting ready to say here. The women are adults, and they should be respected as such. It is a must that these women, they have the same capabilities as us. They can decide for themselves things that they want and don't want. So that leads back to us when we choose Who do we decide to interact with? Who do we decide to have a relationship and have children and marry? That decision falls back to the men. How quickly we jump into a situation. How thorough do we investigate? And how uh, dedicated we are to ourselves. Because if we don't show the self-love, there's no way that we can love someone else. And the respect is in there. So once again, respect for the women is a must, and they are adults. So we have to keep that in mind at all times. So now I want to get to this word, responsibility, because that's attached to men. We hear that word, and one of the first lessons that we begin to teach our sons and daughters, if you have daughters, is responsibility. So let's get into that word. And I like dealing with definitions. I like defining things so that clears up misunderstandings. Not just to sound like I'm so smart. No, it gives a better understanding, and that's why I like to deal with definitions. Okay, responsibility is the state or fact of having a duty to deal with something or having control over someone. There that word again, control. So if you're responsible, you have a duty to take care of something or someone. And that someone or something that you have the duty to take care of or deal with, you are supposed to be in control of. So now, I don't want to beat on the women once again, because I know some of the women might hear this, and I hear a lot of them, they go bananas on that word control. And the guys too sometimes go too far. And I want to talk about that. Okay. Like I said earlier, we understand, some of us, that we don't get a second chance. So if we don't get it right the first time, it's all she wrote. So when we start talking about control, if I am responsible for this woman and my duty is to provide and protect, and I know this is what I want to do, I could fall into the state of mind of overreacting. And that's something that men do sometimes. And that's why I say I wanted to do this Man Up series, because sometimes we overreact. Okay? That don't mean we shouldn't react, but sometimes we overreact. And this is not justification, but this is just to put out what may cause it. So that if anybody hears this and they might have an issue with that, now you might have a little better understanding, so you don't have to do it in the future. Okay, we can't erase the past, it happened, but in the future, we can shape what happens by what we do today. So since we know that we don't get a second chance, and if we make a mistake, that's it. So we so critical of ourselves about not making a mistake. Well, it's gonna happen. We not perfect. The world ain't perfect. Nobody in it is perfect. And if we think we are perfect, we have a mental issue. I'm just gonna go there. You got a mental issue if you think you're perfect. Now I get it. You know, we play and joke. You know, Mr. Perfect. I like to play around and joke too, but in reality, no, none of us is perfect, and we never gonna be. So, just like we expect others to give us a break on our flaws, we have to sometimes give others a break on their flaws. So now we're getting down to some meat here of this subject, because we're not going after the women, we talking about us. So now when you know you got an issue, something that is not a thing that you want to present to the world as this is who I am, how can you do something about it? The first thing, you have to recognize it. You have to isolate that problem or that issue. You have to identify it. Then you can look to find out what are the causes and effects of this particular issue. You write these things down, and then after you look at the causes and effects, you know you don't want these effects, because usually they're negative. So now you look over to the causes. Can I do something about this? And that's what you address. You don't go off on the person, or put emphasis on how the person reacted, because you put something out there that they could react to. And that's just what it is. What you do is you look at the causes and you address the things that you can. Now, if it's a cause in there that you can't change, that's difficult, because more than likely it's going to be just as difficult to change whatever that issue or behavior that you are exhibiting as well. Not saying impossible, but it's going to be very difficult. If you can't change that cause, if you can't address that cause, that behavior is going to be difficult to address as well. So then we want to get down into determination. How determined are we to fix these things about ourselves? Are we just, I could fix that, but oh well. So once we say, oh well, that's basically saying whoever, they just got to deal with it. So now, if you put that out there, remember, you got to take that coming back. If something going to be going on with the woman, and she going to have that same attitude, oh well, just deal with it. Nah, you going to deal with that. That's the question. You pose that to yourself. Are you going to deal with that? Okay, we want to move along because we only got a couple minutes left. Okay, the next one is the word depend. Okay, and I'm attacking this control issue that we have. Depend, that definition is be controlled or determined by or rely on. So once again, here we go with that word, control. The woman, the children, they depend on us. And we have control over them. But we don't abuse it. We don't ask them to do things that they don't want to do unnecessarily, forcefully. We don't do that. We don't want to have hostile interactions with those we love. We don't want that. So if it's something that you might need your lady friend, your wife, your child's mother to do, that you have an idea that she might not be so inclined to do, well, then you got to handle that real carefully. You got to take that into consideration. She might not want to do this. So you're going to have to talk to her extensively to find out what her reservations are for it. and maybe you all can come to some kind of an agreement or compromise. If not, we're gonna constantly, bump heads, and that's not good for the children. You know, so like I said, we don't want to just. I'm attacking the control word because what I'm trying to do is bring out that the word is just a word, and the purpose is not to abuse, is to protect and provide. That's what it is about. So let's get off of that. And last but definitely not least, I'm gonna wrap this video up. We need to go to the doctors and get regular checkups. The men, we need to do that more often, okay? Because health issues can often lead to mental issues, and mental issues can often lead to health issues. So, on that note, I don't want to leave it out there, like, it's not important, because it's very important. That's like the number one thing is the health, because without health, nothing else matters, really. You got people, they will give everything they have to be healthy. So that is the number one thing. We want to make sure that we healthy, both medically and mentally. So on that note, I want to wrap it up and tell you, don't be afraid to do your best. Take care of yourself and your family. Grassman.